And away we go on this edition of Dolphins Today. Fired up to be with you. Lots to discuss because it's the NFL offseason. Obviously, there's rumblings of the potential trades that the Miami Dolphins could make. And we're looking at a couple of different angles with this, some specific targets to identify, and then even the conversation of potentially trading for some draft capital because, as we know, the draft is so crucial. And Chris Grier has a lot to prove in this upcoming draft, as does the entire Dolphins front office. So buckle up, let's dial it in. But before we go any further, if you want the Dolphins to make a trade, or you're open to the idea, you know how you can ensure that they do? Like the video. That's right. With every like, we get those percentages of the Dolphins making a key offseason move skyrocket. So go ahead and like today's video as we continue on with Dolphins Today. Now, there's no secret that the Dolphins certainly need some help, and specifically on the offensive line. You could even make the case that there's a problem on the offensive line. There's a problem of durability. There's a problem of pending free agents. And when you look at that Dolphins depth chart on the offensive line, certainly more questions than answers, especially internally. I'm talking center and guard. Connor Williams, Isaiah Wynn, Robert Hunt. We could replace their headshots with just big question marks because we're just not certain whether or not they'll be sporting the aqua and orange come 2024. So when you have a position group with more questions than answers, it obviously opens the window of opportunity to potentially rebuild that position group, and several different ways to do that, starting with a very compelling trade opportunity as on the potential trading block for the New York Jets is Laken Tomlinson. Now, Laken Tomlinson, a guy we have talked about before on Dolphins Today, but in my eyes, you could certainly identify him as a guy with stability, consistency, a proven veteran in this league. In fact, he has been a consistent force on the Jets' offensive line for a couple of years now and is in the part of his contract entering the final year where maybe the Jets will be looking to move on from him. And you look at the 2023 numbers right there in 16 games, he's allowed the 7 sacks, but certainly Laken Tomlinson, a guy that is proven in the NFL, is a consistent, durable player, and has been the model of consistency over the large portion of his career. And not to mention, there's a connection with him and Mike McDaniel because prior to being the Dolphins head coach, of course, Mike McDaniel in San Francisco, where Laken Tomlinson spent several years. So there's a continuity factor there. There's a level of cohesiveness. And depending on who you ask around league circles, this makes a lot of sense, and that includes Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report. Check out what he had to say in a little bit more detail in an article earlier this week on Bleacher Report, saying, while the Dolphins may and probably should address the line, we know that, thank you, Christopher, with the 21st pick in the draft, they're not going to fill every hole in April. Unfortunately, the free agent class isn't exactly stacked with premium linemen. He goes on to say trading for Jets guard Laken Tomlinson would help address one spot on the line. He is a potential cap casualty despite starting all 17 games in 2023 and being one of New York's few dependable linemen. And I'm glad Knox used the term dependable because I think that's exactly how you describe Laken Tomlinson. So try this one on for size, and I don't think it would be too costly for the Dolphins to make a run at Laken Tomlinson. In fact, I'm projecting a 6th-round pick. And remember, the Dolphins have 2 picks in the 6th round, one of them being from Chicago. So I like the idea of trading a 6th-round pick for Laken Tomlinson. If the Jets are on board, the Dolphins are on board, I want to know from you. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments what grade you give this trade idea. A, B, C, D, or F. It's our pinned comment today, so if YouTube hits you with that ad break, don't worry. Just let your voice be heard by grading this trade. Now, just as a reminder, and I know I said it, but here's a little visual for you because we're all visual learners, right? Thanks for the visual aid, Jake. The Dolphins do not have a pick in the 3rd and 4th round, but then jump over to the right side of the screen. On the 6th round, they have both the 8th selection and the 22nd in that round, pick number 185 and 199. So trading one of those picks from the 6th round makes a lot of sense, especially if the Jets would be willing to accept that as compensation for Laken Tomlinson. And you think about it a little bit more, it might take a little bit more than that. Maybe you got to give that 5th-round pick away. Either way, I think at least engaging in trade talks with the New York Jets for Laken Tomlinson makes a lot of sense. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about a couple of more trade targets that I've identified, including some draft trade talk that is always fun to see if Chris Grier will at least stockpile some more picks for the Miami Dolphins. But first, I want to tell you about today's proud presenting sponsor, because Dolphins Today wouldn't be possible without the #1 ticket app and the only ticketing app you need for all your live events. That's right, the Game Time app. It's game time. You know what? Maybe you're going out to see the Miami Heat. The Panthers are playing some pretty good hockey right now. Don't forget spring training starting as well. Any event you need to get to, Game Time is your one-stop shop. Very easy to use app. You get a high-res photo from where you'll be sitting at, so there's no deception. They even have flash deals. They'll show you the all-in price. It's a win-win-win any way you slice it. And because we love you and we care about you, we're giving you $20 off when you use that promo code FINSCHAT. And don't worry, we'll put the link in the comments and description of today's video. But download the Game Time app. They specialize in the lowest price and guarantee the lowest price, even on last-minute tickets. Take the stress out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app. Terms do apply. And use that promo code FINSCHAT for $20 off. Game Time guarantees the lowest price for all your live events, even if it is last minute. Now, I like the idea also of at least engaging in trade conversations to maybe improve the Dolphins' draft capital, because again, this is a team that has shown that they will make a big splash in trade, and even at the cost of getting rid of some draft picks. That's why you don't see a 4th-round pick for the Dolphins, because that was traded to Denver in the Bradley Chubb deal, which I think you could say was a good deal for the Dolphins. But obviously the Tyreek Hill trade that showed Chris Grier in this front office is willing to give up future draft capital. No round 3 pick as well. Thanks a lot, Sean Payton and Tom Brady. A little tampering action there. Not good. That said, the Dolphins could improve their draft capital by a couple of simple moves. And there are a lot of rumors going on in the NFL rumor mill right now that Buffalo may be a team to keep an eye on that wants to move up a little bit in the draft. Now, Gabe Davis is a free agent as a wide receiver, and in all likelihood, he's not going to be back in Buffalo. You look at this first-round class for wide receivers, or projected first-round class, I should say, and there's some really good options that Buffalo could snag a wide receiver with that 21st pick. So try this idea on for size. Let me know what you think. If Buffalo would be willing to move up to the 21st pick that the Dolphins currently have, I think the Dolphins, in exchange, could move back to 28th in the first round, but also pick up a 3rd-round pick and an additional 6th-round pick. So, again, bolstering that trade capital that the Dolphins desperately need. And in exchange, you get the Bills to move up a little bit for where they would be in a better position to take maybe a guy like Brian Thomas out of LSU. Again, we're just speculating here, but I think it makes a lot of sense for both teams. Now, as I've said in past videos before, though, it is a little bit more complex in making trade deals with a divisional rival, because we don't want to help you, you don't want to help us. Forget the you scratch my back, I scratch your back thing. It's all bets are off when it comes to inter-division trades. That said, this might be the rare occasion where it is a win-win for both teams. So, be honest with me. How much do you love this trade idea? Scale it for me in the comments. If it's a home run, slam dunk, 2 different sports, I know, work with me here, that would be a 10. If you hate it and say, absolutely not, Riepma, go ahead and put a 1 in the comments. Either way, let your voice be heard. Now, if this trade is accepted and goes through the wire, here's what the Dolphins' new draft capital would look like, and it looks a whole hell of a lot better with a pick in the 3rd round. You still don't have a 4th-round pick, but now in that 6th round, you are stockpiling picks with 3 picks in that 6th round, and all it would take was to move from 21st in the 1st round back to 28th, which I still think you could get a really good player in the 1st round with the 28th pick overall. So the draft capital is my 2nd trade target for the Dolphins, but how about the 3rd one? Because there's been rumblings in Philadelphia that Haason Reddick may be on the trading block. Now, let's be very clear with this one. In fairness to Haason Reddick, he's not requesting a trade, but in the midst of his complex contract, the Eagles have allowed him to at least see what else is out there. They did this exact same thing with Darius Slay, and as we know, Darius Slay is still a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. So this certainly doesn't guarantee anything, but for the point of conversation, I think Haason Reddick is a guy that could certainly help the Miami Dolphins, especially at a position of need like the edge rusher, because just like the offensive line, there are a lot of question marks with the Dolphins' edge rushers, not in terms of personnel, because we know Bradley Chubb, we know Jalen Phillips, but their health, right? They had the season-ending Achilles injury for Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, torn ACL, and Andrew Van Ginkel, who had a phenomenal year, is a free agent. So there are some question marks in that room, and a guy like Haason Reddick, there's no question about it, is an impact player. Look at the stats from 2023, played in all 17 games, had the 13 sacks, and anytime you're registering that sack number, go ahead and circle that in red pen. That's what you want on your defense, an extreme value add there for the Miami Dolphins. And in 2023 as a whole, I talked about the 13 sacks, but overall, getting pressure on the quarterback, which was part of the identity of this Dolphins defense in 2023. They had the third most sacks in the NFL. But, it'll be a new defensive coordinator with Anthony Weaver, so we're not sure exactly what the defense will look like. But a guy like Haason Reddick certainly helps the personnel for any defense, especially the Miami Dolphins, at a position of need until Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb come back, and we don't know what's going to happen with Andrew Van Ginkel. So here's my trade idea for the Dolphins to receive Haason Reddick. All you'd have to give up would be a second-round pick, the 55th overall, and just as we talked about the previous trade idea, you're looking for that win-win scenario where both teams are in, both teams feel like they're getting the good deal, and a second-round pick, certainly a big price to pay, but Haason Reddick and his 13 sacks, obviously the production on the field. So let me know what you think of this trade idea. Would you give up a second-round pick for Haason Reddick and his 13 sacks? Go ahead and type Y for yes or N for no. Either way, let your voice be heard. Love seeing the comments on Dolphins Today. It's one of the highlights of my day. Going through the comments, replying, do I agree, do I disagree? Either way, let your voice be heard because that's what it's all about on Dolphins Today. And hey, if you made it to the end of the video, reward yourself, reward me, high five, like the video, and let's continue to tell the nation about Dolphins Today. So if you got a friend that's a Fins fan, show them today's video, show them that you liked it, and that you can get endless Dolphins content on the daily here. And hey, how about a shout out to producer Jeffrey Cooperstein on the ones and twos, a.k.a. Coop, making Dolphins Today possible. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Dolphins Today.